Greetings. I hope you're doing well. This is a summary of week 5 of my pilgrimage here in the Holy Land. And if you've been following along, you'll notice that I'm finally in a different background. I've had the same background for the past 4 videos, the same room. Tried to switch the background up a little bit. But I'm in Bethlehem now. I am so excited to be here. I've been here for a few days. So this is the next kind of location during my pilgrimage. I was in Jerusalem for, I think it was, 5 weeks. Oh my heavens. 5 weeks. This is my summary of my 5th week. Oh dear. Yes, so I was in Jerusalem for 5 weeks. And then I'm now in Bethlehem. So here's kind of a summary of mostly my last bit of time in Jerusalem and then just arriving here in Bethlehem. So something I forgot to mention from week 4 was I actually found an amazing little chapel kind of in Jerusalem, and it's called the Chapel of St. Stephen. And I didn't know it was there. Somehow I kind of stumbled across finding out about it. Obviously, God was leading me to it. But the thing is, I had passed by it, the location of it, many times and didn't know what it was. Because there are a lot of churches there, and sometimes I just don't research what they all are. But anyway, St. Stephen, he was a deacon and he was the first martyr of the church. You can read about him in the first chapters of the Acts of the Apostles. And he believed in Jesus, obviously, and he was telling the religious leaders about his faith, and they weren't happy with that. And then he said he saw the heavens open and Jesus sitting at the right hand of God the Father. And they said his face looked like the face of an angel. And unfortunately, they weren't happy with that. I think they didn't want maybe the Christian message spread. So they took him outside the city and stoned him. And St. Paul, who wasn't a Christian at the time, he approved of this. And then later he became a Christian. So that's the chapel I visited. And it's very close to the Lion's Gate. And it is on the, let me see if I get this right. The east wall of Jerusalem. Also just like a few minutes walk from Gethsemane. So the Lion's Gate is also called St. Stephen's Gate, kind of in honor of what happened to him there. So there's a chapel there, St. Stephen's Chapel. And then, so I went in and I was praying there. It was really beautiful, very special. But in my research, I had learned that there was a stone that they believe St. Stephen's body was laid upon after he was martyred. So I really wanted to try and find out where that stone was. And I went and asked a woman who was working there. She didn't speak English. So I brought up the stone on the internet, on the picture, and I was just pointing it to her. And she was like, oh, kind of go out there. And I went out and another man pointed me down these stairs and I went down. So if you ever go there, right, as soon as you walk in the gate, you turn right and it's just down a few stairs. And there was these large metal doors I opened and you walk in and there's the huge stone. It's a really big stone. It covers like most of the floor. And they have beautiful paintings on the walls and like a little cross and flowers. And it was a beautiful experience being there. I wasn't expecting to be kind of just hit with that so much grace being there and so much emotion. I actually wept. It was just, there was something really special about being in that spot. Obviously, the first person to willingly give their life for Christ, their blood for Christ, and St. Paul was probably in the vicinity there, and the heavens were opened there because the vision he had, St. Stephen had. So it was very, very moving being there, and I could just feel like the holiness of the area. So again, I was so happy that I stumbled upon that church that I walked past so many times. Anyway, that's back from week 4. Now week 5. So my 5th week started off with a girl in my dorm saying that she was going to Tel Aviv, which is on the west coast of Israel. And I hadn't planned to go there in my stops. So I was like, should I go? She invited me to go with her. And I was like, oh, and then I found out that there were, right near Tel Aviv is Jaffa, the old city of Jaffa, which was Joppa from the Bible. And I found there were some interesting biblical things that happened there. So as soon as you kind of put that in front of me, I usually jump on it. So I was like, okay, I'm going. And I prayed about it, and I felt God wanted me there too. And the blessing of going as well is we got to go to a beach. So we took a train from Jerusalem, and the train station in Jerusalem is pretty amazing. It's very, very high tech. We went down like 6 escalators to get to the train station, go deep into the ground. I'm not sure how many meters below, but it's very, very below the street level, very much below. And the escalators are really neat. There's like 4, I think, in a row going up. Like instead when we're used to like 1, there's like 4 going up, 4 sections in the same area. And there's like 6 of them or something like that. So it was really neat. The train was really smooth ride. I think it was like maybe 30 minutes. Then we arrived, we walked to the beach, and I was so excited to swim in the Mediterranean because I'd heard so much about the Mediterranean Sea over the years, from history back to ancient Rome and to Greece. And yeah, even just nowadays, all the countries, the beautiful countries that surround it. So I was really, really excited. It was a little bit like cold that day compared to, it wasn't really, really hot. So if you went out farther into the water, it got a little bit cold. So actually I have a tiny bit of a cold that I got from that day. Maybe I just should have stayed in the warmer parts of the water. The beach was packed. The sand was beautiful. The water was beautiful. I was floating on it like it was salty. I guess obviously probably not as salty as the Dead Sea, but I got a little bit in my mouth and it felt a little salty. And I felt like I was floating a little bit. Not 100% sure. Maybe it was in my imagination. But we just had a lovely time at the beach. And then we took a bus over to the south part of Tel Aviv, again, which is called the old city of Jaffa, which was Joppa, which sounds so familiar to me from the Bible. And they believe that at that seaport, which is the oldest seaport in the world, that's where Jonah was swallowed by the whale. So they have this giant whale structure there. So it was really neat to think about that story because that's so famous. And they also say that possibly King Saul had items brought for building the temple through that seaport. And then one of the gates in Jerusalem is called the Jaffa Gate, because I guess many pilgrims would get off the ships coming in to visit the Holy Land, and they would enter Jerusalem through that gate. And also in the Acts of the Apostles, you'll read about Peter staying in the house, St. Peter staying in the house of Simon the tanner in Joppa, and he had this vision of this net that was let down from heaven, and it had animals in it. I guess that according to Peter's original Jewish faith, he wasn't supposed to eat, but the vision said kill and eat. And I think it was kind of saying that like the faith isn't just for the Jewish people, it's for the entire world, for the Gentiles as well. And then Peter raised a woman, I think she was a widow, Tabitha, from the dead there in Joppa. They had a church, I think it was the Church of St. Peter, beautiful, picturesque, right by the water. We didn't go there, but I passed by and took a picture. And again, there was just a nice feeling being in the old city of Jaffa. It felt very like it was a seaport. You just felt like, obviously you were at a seaport because you were, but you had this really nice coastal seaport vibe. I really liked it there. It had just an old feeling too, and especially like the history and how many pilgrims. That's another reason maybe why it felt so special. Like so many pilgrims came through that port, heading to the Holy Land. So it had I really liked it. I can still just see myself sitting there waiting for the bus and just loving being there. So I was really, really happy to be able to go on that day trip. Some other things that happened this week. Again, I stumbled upon another church, St. Alexander Nevsky. It's, I think, a Russian Orthodox church. It's very close to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And there's a lot of amazing archaeological things inside this church. One is like a gate, kind of an archway that was built during the time of Emperor Hadrian, when after Jerusalem was destroyed and they were trying to build the city as a Roman colony. That's when that was built. They have steps that leads up, that was built during the time of Constantine, that leads up to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, but it's not connected anymore. And then they discovered, like, this is historical proof that they found this wall of the old city of Jerusalem, and they found the threshold of a gate. And they found that you walk through that gate, when you walk through it, the stone was from the time of Christ. So Christ would have stepped on those stones, because they think that would have been the judgment gate, where I guess maybe people were led out to the site of crucifixion. So Jesus would have been led there. And then they had this tiny little hole in the wall beside it, and it's called the Eye of the Needle gate. And I guess when the main gates big ones were closed at night, people could still enter the city, but maybe not with a bunch of stuff or to protect the city, I guess. And there's a Bible passage where Jesus talks about it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven. And some people think that's what he was talking about, that eye of the needle. So I really liked being there. It was really amazing to be there, to see the gate of the old city, like that Jesus would have walked through and he would have touched. Because sometimes it's hard here to figure out, they say, well, this spot or this spot, and you don't know exactly for sure. But I always take everything in faith, and you're getting graces just by honoring what happened, in each spot. But this was really authentic. So I was so happy to stumble across that church. Before my time was up, I was kind of checking off things that I wanted to do. And I think I got pretty much everything I wanted to do on my list. Thanks be to God. One thing I wanted to do was go on the Emmaus Trail. And you may remember the story of the Emmaus story, when after Jesus rose from the dead, two of his disciples I don't know if this happened on Easter Sunday or maybe Easter Monday, but very close to the time of the resurrection. They were kind of saddened by Jesus dying, and they were leaving Jerusalem walking to Emmaus. And Jesus appeared to them, but they didn't recognize that it was Jesus. And he was talking to them about how the Messiah had to suffer and die. And when they arrived at their destination in Emmaus, the disciples encouraged the stranger to stay because it was getting dark. And then Jesus broke bread with them, and they recognized it was Jesus. And they were like, weren't our hearts burning within us as he was explaining the scriptures to us when we were walking along? And they got up and left and went back to Jerusalem and to tell the other disciples like what had happened. So when I was doing research, they were saying how they were trying to figure out where this Emmaus would have been, this town, using, I think the Bible says it's like 60 stadia, whatever that is, from Jerusalem. So there are some different theories, but they've kind of narrowed the trail to like one specific spot they say was the original Emmaus. And the trail doesn't start at Jerusalem and go right to Emmaus, because that would be like a 7-hour hike. But it starts right in the middle between Jerusalem and Emmaus. And the town is called Abu Ghosh, if I'm saying it right. So there's a Christian visitor center there, and the trail starts right near there. And then it's about like, I think a 3 to 5 hour maybe hike, depending on maybe how fast or slow you go, to Emmaus. So what was I going to say? There's something I was going to say about that, but oh well, I forget. Oh, yes, I remember. On Easter, when I was here during Easter week, there was a group, and I knew a priest going with them that were starting from Jerusalem. So I guess you can start from Jerusalem. There's just no like defined trail. There may be like a trail people generally use, but this one's kind of a path that's pretty much defined as that. And I didn't end up going with that group. But anyway, I wanted to just go on the trail to say I had been there and to see it. When I got there, I took a bus to get there from Jerusalem, and it was maybe like 20 minutes. It wasn't long, 20 minutes. And I arrived and I walked to the visitor center and I found the trail, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was one of a special moment on my time here on my pilgrimage. I was there all by myself. It was gorgeous. The trees were beautiful. The birds were chirping. There were butterflies, flowers. Like, it was so peaceful. I absolutely loved it. Like, I didn't want to leave. I wanted to do the whole trail, but I'm by myself. And so I felt that, I just feel kind of a little unsafe, even though it seemed like a kind of a safe area, just being on my own. But I'd love to do it with somebody else. It was just beautiful being there. Again, it was really, really special, and I'm so glad. So I just walked in maybe 15, 20 minutes and turned around and walked back again. But yeah, I loved being there, and I would hope one day that I can do the whole trail, God willing. So that was really special, getting to go on the Emmaus Trail. I wanted to spend a little bit more time at the site of the crucifixion in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre before I went. So I spent some time there. I got some last little clips of the church. Yeah, so I think that kind of summed up my time in Jerusalem. I made so many friends. Like, I've got so many contact information from people, and good friendships that we're still texting. One lady, she went back to Germany and she was sending me some funny texts. And yeah, it's been really amazing that way, that God has really brought people into my life that journeyed with me, that I kind of wasn't expecting this to happen. So then yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I came to Bethlehem, and I was thinking of walking all the way to Bethlehem, and I could have done it from Jerusalem. I think it would take like 2 hours, but I don't know, my bag was so heavy. I'm just like, no, I'm going to take a bus. So I walked about maybe 30 minutes to the bus stop, then was on the bus for about 20 minutes, and then walked like maybe another half an hour to the hostel. And so I am in the West Bank. I think the West Bank is what you call it now. So the Palestinian area. So I had to pass through the wall again to get in here. If you watched one of my first videos, unbeknownst to myself, I passed by the wall already. So yeah, when I first arrived, I was kind of a little bit shocked by the city being so built up. I think I was thinking it was kind of like going to be a grassy hills, like from the movies when Jesus was born, with caves. Like, I don't know why. I think I was a little naive in thinking that it was going to be like that. So yeah, but 2,000 years have passed, and obviously they've built up a city all around it. There's a lovely atmosphere here. There's a touristy area, but there's also like a residential feel if you go on streets. So far, the people here have been really friendly. Like today, I came back from a certain point and this guy was like, "Come back again." He said, "My name is Jet and I'll always be here. Come back again." And just people have been stopping us, like, "Do I need help with anything?" So I felt very like welcomed here. Even like, obviously, it's a tourist area. They're used to tourists. But yeah, I've really liked the people so far that I've met here. What else did I want to say? Oh, it literally feels like Christmas here. Like, obviously they do have things set up like Christmas signs, and there's a Star Street and things like that, but there's just this feel of Christmas, like more than the kind of feeling at home even when you celebrate, decorate Christmas. Like, it just feels like you're breathing in Christmas. I can't really explain it, but it makes sense because this is the heart of Christmas. Christmas comes from here, and it feels that way. So far I've been to the Church of the Nativity, where they have the grotto of the Nativity below where Jesus was born. So they have that spot marked with a star, and they have the spot where they think the manger was. I've been to the Cave of St. Jerome, which is in the next church beside it, the Church of St. Catherine at Alexandria. And what else have I done? Oh, I went to these wells that they believe David got water to drink from the Bible. His soldiers brought water back from him for him to drink. I've walked the Star Street, which is one of the oldest streets here in Bethlehem, which they say possibly could have been the one that Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, Jesus inside Mary, walked on the way to the cave where he was born. So that's just been my little introduction. It's beautiful here. It's beautiful. Like, I've kind of been able to see past all the built up areas and to see, like, just imagine what was here. And again, I'm staying at a lovely place. You can see behind me. It's a dorm, but I have it all to myself, which I'm so excited about. I shared with other people for the past 5 weeks, and it's just so nice to have a spot on my own. And there's a volunteer here that I've connected to. So I've got her, she's been telling me tips on things to do here. We may be going on some things together. Again, God is so good. He keeps putting people into my life on this path and I feel nice having a contact here if anything happens. So just so blessed. I'm so blessed. So I'm still uploading. If you are watching the posts like in real time, I'm still uploading a few left from Jerusalem, and then I'll start uploading the Bethlehem ones. So I think, I think that kind of summarizes my 5th week on my pilgrimage, my transition from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, and this next week will all be in Bethlehem. So take care, sending lots of prayers from this holy place. God bless. Bye.